Lena had never been the type to dwell on the past. Her life was built on routine, morning coffee, a mundane job, and quiet evenings spent reading. But when her best friend Claire suggested taking a DNA test just for fun, Lena shrugged and agreed. Everyone was doing it. It was a harmless trend, a way to find out if she had some unexpected ancestry or long-lost relatives. The small white package arrived in the mail 2 weeks later. It was almost too simple. Spit into a tube, seal it, and send it off. Lena barely gave a second thought as she dropped it into the mailbox. The results, the website had promised, would take a few weeks. She moved on with her life, forgetting about the test entirely. But the test hadn't forgotten about her. 3 weeks later, Lena received the email notification. She clicked the link absent-mindedly, expecting to see a colorful pie chart breaking down her ancestry. Instead, she was met with an alert. Your DNA results require immediate review. Please contact our support team. Her stomach clenched. That wasn't normal, was it? She reloaded the page, but the same red text blinked back at her. Lena hesitated before dialing the number provided. A robotic voice guided her through a series of automated messages before finally connecting her to a live representative. This is Dr. Evelyn Carter, head geneticist at GenTrace. The woman on the other end said, her voice clipped and professional. Are you calling regarding your DNA results? Yes, Lena replied, her voice wavering slightly. I just got a message saying I need a contact support. Is something wrong? There was a pause, long enough that Lena could hear the faint tapping of keys in the background. Then, Dr. Carter spoke again, her tone unreadable. Ms. Dawson, can I confirm that you personally submitted this DNA sample? Lena's brow furrowed. Yes, I did. Why? Another pause. Are you alone right now? A chill crawled down Lena's spine. Why does that matter? Dr. Carter exhaled sharply. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your DNA profile has anomalies. They don't match typical human genetic markers. Lena's grip on the phone tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying... Dr. Carter hesitated, lowering her voice as if someone might be listening. You are not who you think you are. Lena's breath caught in her throat. That's not possible. I wish I were joking, Ms. Dawson. Dr. Carter's voice softened. I can't explain it over the phone. I need you to come to our facility immediately. I'll send an address. But do not, under any circumstances, share your results with anyone else. The line went dead before Lena could respond. She sat frozen, staring at her laptop screen. The words, your DNA results require immediate review, blinked back at her like a warning. Then, another notification popped up. A new email. This one wasn't from GenTrace. It was from an unknown sender. The subject line read, They lied to you. Lena's hands trembled as she clicked it open. Inside was a single sentence. Do not go to GenTrace. They are hunting you. Lena's heart pounded as she reread the email. They are hunting you. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who had sent this? How did they know about her DNA test? And why would GenTrace lie to her? A creeping paranoia settled in her chest. She glanced at the windows, half expecting to see shadowy figures lurking outside. Her apartment felt smaller, suffocating. Something was very wrong. She clicked the reply button and hesitated before typing. Who are you? What do you mean? She hit send and waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. No response. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. It was another email from the same unknown sender. Leave your apartment. Now, they're coming. Lena's breath caught. Was this a sick joke? But a deep, instinctual fear clawed at her insides, telling her to listen. Before she could process, a knock echoed through the apartment. A firm, deliberate knock. Lena's blood turned to ice. No one ever visited unannounced. She tiptoed toward the peephole, her breath shallow. A man in a black suit stood outside her door. He wasn't holding a package, nor did he look like a neighbor. His posture was stiff, calculated. He knew she was inside. Then, another knock, harder this time. Lena backed away, her mind racing. If this had anything to do with the DNA test. She wasn't about to open the door. Her phone vibrated again. Back door. Now. She didn't think. She just moved, snatching her coat. She bolted through the kitchen and quietly unlocked the sliding glass door that led to the alley behind her building. The cold night air bit her skin as she slipped outside, heart hammering. Then she heard it. The front door burst open. Heavy footsteps thudded inside her apartment. Lena didn't wait to see who they were. She ran. She sprinted down the alley, ducking between trash bins and old crates, her pulse deafening in her ears. The city streets loomed ahead, bright and buzzing with the normalcy of people who had no idea she was running for her life. Her phone buzzed again. Corner of 5th and Main. Black sedan. Get in. She hesitated. This could be a trap, but the alternative, whoever had just broken into her home, seemed far worse. Swallowing hard, she turned the corner and spotted the black sedan idling by the curb. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a man in his late 30s with sharp eyes and a tense expression. "Lena Dawson?" he asked. She hesitated. "I'm the one who emailed you," he said quickly. "Get in if you want to live." Lena's mind screamed at her to run in the opposite direction, but the figures emerging at the end of the street, the same black suits from her apartment, made her choice for her. She jumped into the car. The man floored the gas pedal, tires screeching as they sped away. Lena could barely catch her breath. "Who the hell are you?" The man kept his eyes on the road. "My name's Daniel Mercer. I used to work for GenTrace." Lena's stomach twisted. "What do they want from me?" Daniel glanced at her, his face grim. "It's not what they want from you," he said. "It's what they already took." Lena's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "You're not who you think you are, Lena." Her world spun as his words echoed in her head, and for the first time in her life, she realized she wasn't sure if she wanted to know the truth. The car sped through the city streets, weaving between late-night traffic. The neon lights of fast food joints and gas stations blurred past, but Lena barely noticed. Her hands trembled in her lap, her breath uneven. Daniel's words echoed in her head. "You're not who you think you are." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "That doesn't make any sense." "What do you mean?" Daniel exhaled sharply, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "Your DNA test flagged something GenTrace has been trying to keep buried for years. You're an anomaly." Lena shook her head. "That's impossible. I've lived a normal life. I have parents, a history." Daniel shot her a grim look. "Are you sure?" Lena opened her mouth to respond, but then she hesitated. She thought about her childhood, the vague memories, the feeling of never quite fitting in, her mother's quiet hesitation whenever she asked about family history. A cold sensation crept through her veins. I don't know," she admitted. Daniel pressed his foot harder on the gas. "That's because your past isn't real." Lena's breath hitched. "You're lying." "I wish I were." His voice was heavy, filled with something close to regret. GenTrace has been running experiments for decades. Some of them involve genetic engineering, altering DNA, creating life outside of normal biological constraints. Lena's skin prickled. "What are you saying?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "You're not just another person, Lena. You're a project, something they designed." Lena's mind recoiled at the thought. "That's insane. I'm a normal human being." Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened. If that were true, GenTrace wouldn't have sent a recovery team after you. Lena's pulse pounded in her ears. "Recovery team? They're not after you because you're in danger," Daniel said, voice low. "They're after you because you're theirs." A sickening realization settled in her gut. "They think they own me," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "And they'll do anything to get you back." The weight of his words made her stomach churn. Every part of her wanted to deny it, to laugh and call him insane. But the terror in his voice told her this wasn't some elaborate joke. Lena clenched her fists. "Then what do we do?" Daniel made a sharp turn down a dimly lit road, finally slowing the car. "There's someone who can help us," he said. "Someone who knows the truth about what you are." Lena turned to him, eyes burning. "And if I don't want to know?" Daniel's jaw tightened. Then GenTrace will decide for you. A shiver ran through her as the car pulled into an abandoned warehouse lot. The headlights flickered against rusted metal and broken windows. "This is it," Daniel said, cutting the engine. "Stay close to me." Lena hesitated before following him out of the car. The night was eerily silent. Only the distant hum of the city buzzed in the air. Daniel led her toward the warehouse entrance, pushing open the heavy metal door. Inside, the darkness swallowed them. Then, a voice echoed from the shadows. "You shouldn't have brought her here." Lena's breath caught in her throat. A figure stepped forward, eyes cold and calculating. Daniel squared his shoulders. She deserves to know the truth. The stranger's gaze locked onto Lena. She won't like what she finds. Lena's stomach twisted. Somewhere deep inside, she already knew they were right. Lena's breath felt tight in her chest as she stared at the man in front of her. He was older, in his 50s maybe, with graying hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through her. Something about him felt wrong, not in the way the suited men chasing her did, but in a way that made her uneasy, like he knew too much. Daniel stood firm beside her. "Lena, this is Dr. Malcolm Reyes. He worked for GenTrace back when it all started." Dr. Reyes studied her, his gaze unwavering. "She has no idea, does she?" Lena clenched her jaw. "No idea about what?" Reyes sighed and turned away, walking deeper into the dimly lit warehouse. "Come with me," he said. "It's time you understand what you really are." Lena hesitated, but Daniel gave her a reassuring nod. Reluctantly, she followed. The warehouse wasn't abandoned after all. Past the broken windows and rusted walls, a hidden doorway led to a stairwell, descending into something more clinical. The walls changed from crumbling concrete to smooth steel, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Lena's pulse quickened. This wasn't some makeshift hideout. It was a lab. Dr. Reyes stopped in front of a large metal door and pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. With a low hiss, the door slid open. Inside, the room was lined with screens displaying charts, genetic sequences, and something that made Lena's stomach drop. Photographs. Photographs of her. Lena staggered back. Images of her as a baby, a child, a teenager, even photos from just days ago, before she'd ever taken the DNA test. She spun to face Reyes. "What the hell is this?" Reyes met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Your entire life has been monitored, Lena, because you are one of the last remaining subjects of the Project Echo experiment." Lena's heart pounded. "I don't understand." Daniel spoke up, his voice low. "Lena, GenTrace didn't just study human DNA. They created new strands. You weren't born. You were engineered." The words hit her like a physical blow. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible. I have parents, a family." Reyes shook his head. "Planted memories. Artificial lineage records. Your parents were assigned to you to make you believe you had a normal life. But in reality," he gestured to the screen, "you were grown in a lab, a genetic prototype, a being with enhanced DNA." Lena's stomach lurched. "I don't believe you," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Daniel sighed. "Lena, when was the last time you got sick?" She blinked. "What?" "Think," he pressed. "Have you ever had the flu? A fever? Even a cold?" Lena opened her mouth to answer, then froze. Her mind raced back, searching through years of memories. She had seen friends with runny noses, fevers, coughing fits. She had comforted them, but she had never experienced it herself. Not once. A sickening chill washed over her. Reyes continued, "Your body is different. GenTrace used their research to create something beyond human, something resilient, stronger, smarter." Lena took a shaky step back, her mind reeling. "This can't be happening," she murmured. Reyes sighed. "You were never meant to find out. That's why they're after you." Lena's breathing became shallow. She clenched her fists, trying to ground herself. "Then why am I a threat?" she asked. Reyes exchanged a look with Daniel before responding. "Because Lena..." He turned to one of the monitors and pulled up a file. Her name was there, along with a series of disturbing data points. but it was the words at the bottom that made her blood run cold. Project Echo. Status. Termination pending. Lena's vision blurred as realization hit. "They don't want me back," she whispered. Daniel's expression darkened. "No, they want to erase you." A wave of nausea rolled through her. "Then what the hell do we do now?" Reyes straightened. "We finish what we started. We expose GenTrace. And we find out why they're so afraid of you." Lena swallowed hard, her mind still spinning. But deep down she knew there was no going back. Whatever the truth was, she had to face it, even if it destroyed her. The next few days passed in a blur for Lena. Every moment was filled with panic, adrenaline, and a constant gnawing feeling that she was being hunted. Daniel and Dr. Reyes had pulled her into a world she hadn't known existed, a world where genetic manipulation was more than science fiction. Lena had always thought she was normal. Now, nothing felt real. She stood in the dimly lit underground lab, staring at the flashing screens, trying to comprehend the terrifying information that had come to light. The people she thought she knew, her family, were simply actors in a twisted game. Daniel paced back and forth, his expression tense. "We need to move quickly, Lena. GenTrace is close to finding us." Lena clenched her fists, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "What do we do now?" Dr. Reyes looked up from his monitors. "We expose them. There's a secure server with all the evidence we need. It's hidden in GenTrace's main headquarters, and if we can get in and release the data, we'll finally have the proof we need." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "You want me to go to them?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. "We don't have a choice. If they get their hands on you, it's over. But if we can get the data out, if we can show the world what they've done, you'll have the chance to make them pay for everything." Lena shook her head. I can't go back there. I don't even know who I am anymore." Dr. Reyes approached her, his eyes full of a strange mix of sympathy and resolve. "You are the key to everything. They built you to be perfect, too perfect, but you have something they never expected." Lena stared at him. "What do you mean?" "You have free will," Reyes said, his voice steady. "You've lived a life beyond their control. That's what makes you dangerous to them." She stood in silence, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time since this nightmare began, Lena felt a flicker of something. Power. "We have one shot," Daniel said, urgency creeping into his voice. "The data's locked up in their vault. We can't waste time." Lena took a deep breath, feeling the storm of emotions rise inside her. She wasn't sure who she was anymore, but one thing was certain. She couldn't let GenTrace get away with it. "Let's do it," she said, her voice steady and resolute. The plan was simple, or so they hoped. Infiltrate GenTrace headquarters, find the server room, and download the data. But nothing about GenTrace was simple. The building was fortified, heavily guarded, and crawling with surveillance. As the trio made their way to the facility, Lena's mind raced with questions. What was she going to find in the server data? Would it reveal the full extent of what GenTrace had done to her? Or was there something even darker buried beneath the surface? When they finally arrived at the building, they slipped into the shadows, avoiding the security cameras with calculated precision. Lena's heart beat so loudly in her ears that she could barely hear the whispers of the wind around them. "This is it," Daniel whispered, his breath steady despite the tension. They reached a reinforced door at the back of the building. Reyes punched in a series of codes, and the door clicked open. Inside, rows of computers and servers hummed quietly. Lena felt her pulse quicken. This was it, the heart of GenTrace. Reyes led the way to the server room. "The data should be on this terminal," he said, pointing to a sleek, high-security computer. He plugged in a device to bypass the encryption. Lena stared at the screen, the clock ticking down in her mind. As the progress bar filled, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. She glanced over her shoulder, eyes scanning the shadows. Then she heard it, the sound of footsteps. "Move, now," Daniel hissed. Lena grabbed the flash drive as Reyes yanked the cables free, and they rushed out of the room. But just as they reached the door, a shout echoed down the hall. "Stop them." Lena's heart dropped. GenTrace had found them. They sprinted down the hallway, the sound of the pursuers growing louder. Lena's lungs burned with each step, but she couldn't slow down. She couldn't let them catch her. Daniel glanced back. There's a maintenance shaft down this way. Hurry! They veered off into a narrow hallway and reached a grated vent. Daniel yanked it open, and the three of them crawled inside, squeezing through the narrow passage. Lena's breath came in ragged gasps as they navigated the maze of vents. Every noise made her jump. Every creak in the walls felt like a warning. But they made it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged from the maintenance area outside the building. Lena stumbled into the night air, her heart still racing. Daniel turned to her. "We did it!" She stared at the flash drive in her hand. It was heavy with the truth, with everything that could bring GenTrace to its knees. And yet, as she looked at it, a sense of dread crept over her. What if exposing the truth was more dangerous than living in the dark? What if everything she thought she knew about herself was just another layer of lies? But it was too late to turn back now. As the three of them disappeared into the night, Lena realized that her life would never be the same. The truth had been unlocked, and with it, the undeniable power to change everything. But the question remained, what would she do with it?